Okay, hello guys and welcome back. This is even last minute for me because I'm actually kind of going into a phase of getting ready for this spiritually for this shift coming tomorrow. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about what this shift is. I wanted to take some time to take last minute questions. So I'm really going to kind of open it up to any kind of questions that you have. It doesn't mean I'll answer your question. If your question is something I think I can answer, if it's a relevant question, I will answer it. But yeah, today is the last day, and I'm getting myself prepared emotionally and spiritually for what is going to come tomorrow. Now, for me personally, because I happen to have my ascendant and my moon happens to be in the path of the eclipse tomorrow. So that means that it could have an impact on me. So the other thing that's important to know about this eclipse, because if you remember last time I talked to you about the nodes of the moon, which are mathematical points, which are responsible for the eclipses of both the sun and the moon. And I talked to you about what they are in Vedic astrology. The north node is called Rahu and the south node is called Ketu. Rahu represents all of our ambitions, all of our addictions, all of our unfulfilled desires, all of our illusions. And the lesson of Rahu, when Rahu is doing his mojo on you, the lesson of Rahu is to learn the difference between the desires that cannot be fulfilled, which would correspond with obsessions and addictions. And the thing about obsessions and addictions is that the harder you go after them, the more your life force is depleted, the more unhappy you become, and the more addicted you become to just trying to get that, whatever it is you think it is. And so true satisfaction is when we are fulfilling the desires that are connected to our deepest innermost self. And so when we fulfill those desires, we actually achieve release. As you know, the way that I teach it is that enlightenment is the fulfillment of all of your deepest desires. And when you fulfill all of the desires of the soul, then the soul has no need to come back. The only reason that we are incarnated into this life again and again is because we choose to come back, because we have unfulfilled desires. So that's why we keep incarnating. So what is going to happen on this this eclipse is that we are going to have the influence of both Rahu and Ketu. So remember, Rahu is your obsessions and your addictions, your unfulfillable desires, and Ketu is the aspect that says, you know what, I don't need any of this. Rahu seeks to drive you deeper into physical manifestation, deeper into the illusion of the matrix, if you will. And Rahu says, this is just an illusion, let's just escape this, let's unplug. Rahu wants to tear you away. So Ketu wants to tear you away. Rahu wants to put you into the illusion, and Ketu wants to destroy the illusion. So this is why Rahu and Ketu are so destructive. Because let's say, for instance, the positive influence of Jupiter gives deep spiritual peace. The positive of the moon gives meditative peace and gives nourishment and gives positive detachment. So Ketu is considered to be a very spiritual planet because it wants to take you out of physical life. And so on the positive, the lessons of Ketu are, I've done that, I've been there, I don't need that, that's a waste of time, there's nothing to be gained in that, and so I'm going to seek my fulfillment simply through connection to the spiritual realm. But Ketu, because he is one of the nodes of the moon, Ketu brings that awareness, but he brings it forcibly. So both Rahu and Ketu are agents of death in that regard. And so when Ketu comes and does his mojo, then what happens is something is just torn out of your life. You know, I went through a sub-period of Ketu right after my divorce, and it felt like that. I was living in northern Idaho on the edge of, literally on the edge of civilization. I was about, I think, 20 minutes from the highway, and then another, you know, 10 miles up a dirt road, and I was the last house on that dirt road that had electricity. And I lived in the middle of the forest, the middle of the woods. The only creatures that I saw were moose and elk and deer, and there were grizzly bears around, but I didn't see them. And lots of eagles flying, bald eagles and stuff. And that's what it felt like. I lived next to this rushing river, and so it sounds really beautiful, but it was like, you know, I was just, my old life was just getting torn away from me. And one of my friends who lived in that area saw me there and said, this is your hospital, because that's really what it was. I was recovering from, you know, wasn't just a normal divorce that I went through. I gave up everything. Everything that I had invested in for the past 10 years, I walked away from it. I had nothing. I had literally just enough to survive and nothing else. And so that's what Ketu does. It rips you away from your life. So while it sounds really great, oh, I'm going to be removed from this illusion, if you're on the challenging side of Ketu, he will tear your life away from you. You know, it's a forcible spiritual awakening. So we have both of that, because the star that the eclipse, the solar eclipse, is going to be aligned with is the star Regulus, which in the Vedic is the nakshatra called Magha. Magha is ruled by Ketu, and Magha is ruled by the ancestors. So traditionally speaking, during these times, in Vedic times, when you had this kind of alignment, what would happen is people knew that they could communicate directly with their ancestors. And so when the eclipse was going overhead, they knew that there was a window where they could talk directly to their ancestors, and you get a download of information within that couple of minutes that it's as if you sat and spoke with them for, you know, a decade and learned everything from them. I had this kind of experience when I first started working with the gods and the spirits of my ancestors. Being, you know, this northern path, this Norse shamanic path that I'm teaching, that's what happened, is that I had an encounter with them, and I was given an opportunity. Do you want to learn from us? And I said, yes, please. And they said, hang on, here it comes. And what ended up happening was that over a course of it was a while, but especially those first few days, there was just this download of information that was so deep and so intense that I couldn't put it into words. If you were to ask me what was going on at that time, I would just kind of look at you with these big eyes, because I had an intuitive knowing of what it meant. I just couldn't put any words to it. And so all of the books that I've written up until this time have been downloading and unpacking of those downloaded zip files. So this is one of those experiences. So what I first want to talk about is letting go of who you think you are. Letting go of the ego, because Leo is the sun, and the sun, besides being the soul, is also the ego. So again, in Vedic astrology, if you have problems with your sun, it can mean a lot of things, but one of the things it could mean is that your ego is overblown. You know, your sense of self is hyperinflated, which can cause obviously all kinds of problems. It can make you difficult to be around. It can, you know, make you do stupid things, brash. It can make you egotistical and stomp all over others. And so in Vedic astrology, when a planet is out of alignment, or if it's weak, or if it's, you know, malefic, then one of the things you do is you look for its opposite to counterbalance it. So for instance, Rahu, which is the obsessions and the addictions and the drives for you know, the things that will never satisfy you. The way to deal with that is to worship Jupiter. So Jupiter is the exact opposite. Jupiter says, you know, what's important is the spiritual life, and what's important is not to be selfish but to be selfless. And so that's the what you use against that. But when it comes for the sun, when you have your sun is overblown, one of the ways you fix the sun is with the sun. Meaning you have to learn the difference between the ego and the soul. And the sun is representative of both of those. And so this is going to be a real test for the ego. That's on the personal level. Now, we talked last time about Donald Trump's chart. I just that morning, whenever it was, I think it was it yesterday or day before yesterday? Day before yesterday. So Friday morning I got up, and just out of curiosity, I pulled up Donald Trump's chart online, and I punched it in and looked at it, and I was blown away. And that's how I knew, based on, and I already talked about it at length, what was in his chart. This is going to be a monumental shift, not only for him, but for the presidency of the United States in general. This eclipse potentially has the power to completely shift the balance of power in the world, and the United States will no longer be the, you know, the most powerful. It's already begun to happen in all kinds of ways, but in terms of reputation, because that's in what is happening in Donald Trump's chart, is his reputation is being affected. He's all kinds of personal things, but his reputation is really what is being affected. And listen, I'm not talking out of school here. You know, if you've watched the news, you know, depending, and by the way, I recommend whoever is watching that you get your news sources from multiple places, even if you have a bias against whether it's the mainstream media or Fox News. You know, go to Breitbart and see what they're saying. Go to Fox News and see what they're saying, and listen to the mainstream media and see what they're saying. In all of these, you are going to see that his reputation is going under attack everywhere. Watch what's going to happen. Now that Steve Bannon is out of the White House, he is going to slowly start undermining President Trump. He's already done it, and pretty soon he's going to start attacking him outright. And so what's happening, that's happening here domestically, but what's happening around the world, and those of you who live in other countries already know this, is that the United States is no longer looked to for leadership. The opinion of the United States, the stance of the United States, the policy of the United States in international affairs is no longer looked at. In fact, the countries of Europe have just, have written United States off altogether, especially Trump, and they're just making decisions without him. That it has the potential for this eclipse. It has the potential for him and the United States to completely lose all of its authority and credibility all over the world. So depending on how you look at it, that could be positive or negative. So that's what's going to happen. The reason why I'm talking about this is because the Leo, the sign of Leo is about government. It's about the king. The sign of the king is Leo. So what we're seeing is a direct influence on the kings, and especially because this is going over the United States, so it's going to have an effect on kings in general, leaders of state in general, but it's going to have the largest effect on the seat of power in the United States. So, and again, Ketu is important because if we were just talking about Rahu, then we would be talking about all the things connected to Rahu. but because the eclipse is happening in the nakshatra that is ruled by Ketu, then we have not only Rahu coming in, when Rahu wants to destroy the ego, and he wants to destroy your connection to your soul on the negative. Ketu wants to come in and destroy your attachment to the physical realm. So it's not just going through the normal problems of Rahu. We've got the combined forces of both Rahu and Ketu are both destructive planets. They come to destroy. One wants to destroy your ambitions, and the other one wants to destroy your connection to the physical realm. And so this is monumental. So for those of you who have, like me, you have things in your chart which I'm really excited about it, to be honest, because, you know, the great thing about as you get older, if you do spiritual work, especially if you do spiritual work on yourself or psychological work on yourself throughout your life, as you get older, the problems in your chart actually turn out to become blessings. So had something like this happened early in my life, it could have been really traumatic for me. But because I'm 54, this is an opportunity actually to have a complete wipe the slate clean of all of the karmic baggage, all of the things that, you know, all of the, for me, what I'm focusing on is all of the shadows and vibrations of the negative self-image that I've had about myself throughout my life. You know, and I'm already seeing it. I'm already seeing, even when I look at myself, either on video or I listen to myself or look at what I've read, all of a sudden the blinders of self-sabotage and self-criticism is falling off. And I'm starting to see myself for who I truly am. And I'm starting to see myself as other people see me. And so this is the kind of thing that you want here. You want to get rid of the false ego. You know, the false ego that is created out of fear, out of, you know, the false assumption that the universe is not here to help you. That is a false assumption. The true assumption is that everything here in the universe and everybody and everything in the universe is here to help you. You know, I just recently, yesterday, did a video. You know, I really try and stay out of politics. I really try and stay out of, you know, obvious things that, you know, things that like racism and all that kind of stuff, especially because I'm a Norse shaman. Because of that, you know, there's a lot of people that are on the periphery of this that, you know, have mixed up in their spiritual outlook. They have all kinds of political and racialist tendencies. And so I want to be a place where everybody can come regardless of their politics. But I had to clear the air yesterday. And every now and then you got to do it. You got to clear the air. I think it's important for your orlog. It's important for, you know, your integrity. It's important that people know exactly where I stand. And if I represent something that bothers you, then you should know that, so that you can make the choice as to whether or not you want to listen to me. If you're working with me and I have a position that, assuming that I have garnered some respect in your eyes, if I have a position that maybe is a little difficult, maybe it threatens some of your beliefs and your positions, then if you trust me as your teacher, then perhaps it's time to take a look and see whether or not some of those beliefs are helping you. Because here is what is going to happen in this eclipse. What is going to happen is the things that the king has, and this is if we're talking about Donald Trump or government in general. This, you know, of course, goes for people in power like corporations and, you know, senators and super rich, the elite, you know, because, you know, we could get into it, but, you know, there's this, you know, we all know, regardless of what side you are on the political spectrum, we all talk about how the people with money are running, you know, these false propaganda about politics. And, you know, we can fight about which one of us on which side of the aisle is right and which one is wrong, but we both agree with that. That the elites are using their money to create propaganda in order to deceive the masses so that they can make more money and keep their power. This is going to get shaken up big time. And we're going to see that as time goes on. I'm going to talk very briefly because I don't know a heck of a lot about it because I'm not all that interested in it. But as time approaches to this, September 23rd, I believe, is by the Christian rite is said to be this where the world is really going to come to an end, and you know the rapture is going to come and all that. And you know, of course, I don't buy into those things specifically because I have a different belief system. But I always listen when there is, you know, when there is a big rumbling about something. It means that there's some truth to it. So when I take both of that in and I look at it from my perspective with my knowledge and with the information available to me and my intuition, I think that this eclipse is going to begin a process of completely unseating power, of revealing all of the secrets that is held by those in power, by the government, and by, you know, the elites, and by, you know, all those that have money and the banks and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of people's false understandings, even if they got some reverberations of truth, the idea is that everybody's going to see. Now, I don't know. I'm telling you what this is supposed to mean. I got to be honest with you. I have my doubts about that. I have my doubts that people that I disagree with are going to finally go, oh my gosh, I've been deceived this whole time. I was going in the right direction, but I was in the wrong neighborhood. I have my doubts about that. But if it could happen, this is the time it's going to happen. So, again, the focus really here isn't about politics or any of that stuff. My focus is on the personal experience that we want to have. So, before I go to a break and take questions, assuming that I haven't even looked, assuming that there are people watching right now, what I would like for you to do is to begin focusing on if there was something that you would like to fundamentally change about your life that comes as a result of getting rid of, destroying false ego, of dying to yourself. You know, think about that, because that is what is going to be the effect of this, especially for those of us who have planets and alignments and things like that in our chart, which will be affected by it. So think about that, and think about what you want to do tomorrow during the eclipse, what you want to focus on. I'll give you a last minute instruction. There's a lot of people that say this is a good day to fast. That this is a good day, you know, like for me, I've got some things that I like to indulge in, like, you know, I still like I still like listening to things like speed metal, you know, all that kind of stuff. So what I've been doing is I've just been listening to Vedic chants for the past couple of days. And I'm just going to keep doing that. I'm just going to keep filling my mind with things that really feed the spirit. So, you know, fasting, you know, focusing, meditating, taking the day off if you can, doing things that are going to lighten you so that you will be more connected to the spiritual. Again, this is going to be a very powerful eclipse for connecting to the ancestors and, you know, getting their input on things. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do a little business, and then I'm going to do a little business and then see if there are any questions. So I'll be back in a second. Okay, so let's take a look here. There was a couple of questions. I saw some comments. Somebody made a comment about, oh my God, why does everything have to be so negative? I don't know that I said anything negative. I think if you really listen to what I'm saying, and maybe I'm missing it. But if you really listen to what I'm saying is that this is an opportunity for massive shift in a positive way. But it is a reality that one of the things that is necessary for awakening is to face our darkness. So I do believe that it's that people should check themselves to see if they respond positively to that or if they respond out of fear. So that's why, this is why the astrologers, because for the most part, when astrologers, if we're talking about mundane astrology, they're going to give general instructions for the masses, which means that a good chunk of people, when you have these kinds of things, are going to respond out of their fear and their negativity. So you can't avoid that. Just be aware of that. If it's going to touch you, there's going to be perhaps some discomfort. But what I want you to take away with that is that that is in and of itself is an illusion. If you have something in you that needs to come out, it's got to come out. So it's better to lean into it than it is to try and resist it. Having said that, it is good to check yourself. If you're the kind of person that is going to respond negatively to that, then do what they recommend. Stay home, close the blinds, close the windows, listen to music, light a candle, pray, focus on positivity. Absolutely. But also for those that want to, if you want to lean into it, then really take a look at what it is within you that needs to get transformed. Ascension never happens without destruction. I mean, this is the whole myth of Ragnarok. Ragnarok is the gods fight against the demons and the world is destroyed, and from that destruction comes a higher vibration. This is what I'm talking about. So when you hear me talking about destruction and all that and the negative aspects, it means what I'm saying is that transformation is coming. And so we have a choice, and I am giving you a choice so that you can make a conscious choice to say, I'm going to lean into this. And I'm going to choose what it is I want to be transformed. And listen to yourself. What are the things within you that have not helped you? Because trying to avoid the fear only makes it worse. So lean into it. Now, if you have to stay at home and light candles and watch Netflix and think about positive things, great. But be aware. Be aware that you can turn this supposed negative into something really empowering and really positive. So, all right, so there was a question here. Awakened Maven says, did you fix all of your health issues only by following your dreams, or were there other physical things that you did? It's a great question. The answer is yes to both. But it starts with following my desires. So for those of you who are new to the channel, what Awaken, I don't know if you're a man or woman, what Awaken is asking me is concerning what I teach, which is that when you follow your deepest soul desires, regardless of what other people think, and when you take action on your deepest soul desires, the things that give you true joy, even if that means getting rejected by people or losing your job or whatever it is, then what ends up happening is that the universe comes to your aid and gives you everything that you need, because that's your job. And this is what we go through in life. This is the lesson in life. You are going to continuously be given the choice to choose between what your soul desire wants or what you think you're supposed to do, or what your friends or your family or your spouse or your government or your church. At some point in time, you will bump into these choices. And when you make choices to please other people out of a desire to be accepted or to be good or to be righteous or whatever it is, then what ends up happening is that your soul gets angry with you. And that can cause all kinds of issues. It can cause health issues. When you make the decision, say for instance, if you grew up in a house full of people who, your father's a baker and he wants you to be a baker, and you want to be a dancer, and you decide you're going to be a dancer instead of a baker, and your father says, that's it, you're out of the family. Well, you have to make a choice to follow your deepest desire or what your father wants. And so it's a very frightening thing, because losing the love of your dad, losing the reputation, losing, maybe he cuts you off financially. See what I mean? These are the kinds of things you will have to run into. And when you make the choice to follow your soul desire, regardless of what anything or anybody else says, and you're willing to take that risk, then the universe comes and helps you. In my case, I did that, and without getting into it again, what ended up happening is that I had a lot of physical illnesses, age-related illnesses, that disappeared. What ended up happening for me, did I do physical things? Well, what I wanted to do was physical things. I wanted to surf again. I wanted to live by the beach. I wanted to live in the mountains. I wanted to hike. I wanted to do all that kind of stuff, and I was physically incapable, but I didn't let that stop me, and I did it anyway. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, all of my, I had this knee issue where I literally, my knee was like the size of a basketball sometimes, and I just couldn't do anything. And that's completely gone. And doctors were telling me, oh, you've got a this and a that, and injuries from martial arts and from blah, 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 blah. And none of that is true. So to answer your question, both, but it started with just following my desires. So if you're having health issues and you are under the impression that your health issues are a result of you not following your soul desire, then yes, the first thing to do is to start following your soul desire regardless of the odds, and then the other things will become clear as to what to do. For instance, let's say that there is a real physical issue that needs some kind of medical treatment. When you follow your soul desire, you will be in alignment to the universe, which will then provide you with the doctors or the alternative health professionals, or something that maybe you weren't aware of before. So let the physical come after. Just take action and let everything else fall into place. Okay? Let's see what else. Okay, let's see. Okay, it's good again. If you want to get my attention, ask a question. Make sure that I see question marks, because if I don't, then I assume it's a statement and I just go past it. Or put question in capitals in front of your question, and then I'll stop. So this is a question, even though you didn't put a question mark on it. If I got it accurately, George C. Goranci says, what our souls want, it will get if we go with the flow of the eclipse. Well, yeah, I guess, this eclipse and everything in the universe, I mean, there's no such thing as bad anything, it's just how we react to it. I used to say, people would say to me, how's life treating you? And I'd say, life is treating me fine. I'm the only one that has a problem with it. And that was, anyway, and that turns out to be true. So, yeah, if you go with the flow of what this eclipse wants to do to you, then that will force you to get into alignment with your soul. If you resist what it's trying to heal in you, then it will be very challenging. Because what will be happening is that you will be unconsciously trying to stay out of alignment. So, again, however difficult the challenges may be, just understand that it's there to help you. So ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from this? Okay. Okay, so Natalia Lokia says, myself an ordained Kandampu nun and a proud Asatru were discussing this yesterday. Now is the time of the universal syncretic understanding. I agree. Let's see. All right, again, questions. Looking forward to questions. George Garanzi says, will there be any effect on those who are not Leos? Yes, I would have to take a look at your chart, but, you know, listen, you know, like somebody said earlier, don't get too flipped out about this, you know, just, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity, and symbols have a huge impact on our unconscious mind. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that this is not going to affect you astrologically. Well, it is a huge, you know, and my gut is saying, yeah, it's going to affect everybody on some level. But even if it didn't, it is a huge symbol. And the unconscious mind really listens and reacts to symbols. So whenever you've got a huge symbol right in front of you that you can use, and this is something everybody can use, then you have the ability to take, you know, a head start. It's sort of like, even if this isn't astrologically going to be huge for you, you can get some extra credit by deciding, you know what, I know this symbol is going to be undeniably there. I'm just going to go ahead and act as though it's going to be huge for me, and I'm going to be able to do this ritual and talk to the ancestors and completely change my life and that sort of thing. So I hope that answered your question. Natalia Lokia says, Teacher Michael, what will you be doing during the eclipse? Ritual using the thunder wheel? I would love to know. Well, part of rituals is a lot of times you don't tell anybody what you're doing, because then your ego gets involved. So I'm not going to come out and say exactly what I'm doing for that reason, not because I'm trying to hide anything. Maybe afterwards I'll tell people. But because I want to make the best use of it. But know that I will be doing things that will help me to connect to my deepest self. I'm going to be doing things that with the theme of letting go of a bunch of past garbage. You know, here I am now 54, I'm getting into my later years. This is when I'm, you know, according to my chart, I'm really going to start shining. So I want to get rid of any of the old self-destructive, incorrect assumptions about myself. And I do intend on, yeah, I got to stop there. So that's about as far as I can go. Thank you for the question. I'm sorry that I couldn't be more specific. George says, is it possible to shield oneself to resist any change? Why would you want to do that? Yeah, it's possible, but that is the exact opposite of what you want. Because shielding yourself to resist change is exactly what the unconscious mind does. That's what disease is. That's what poverty is. That's what addictions are. That's what unhappiness is. These are all the effects of people resisting the change. Because change, especially when it has to do with your ego, your sense of self, all of that, it will be challenging and frightening. That's why these things can be so frightening to people. The people who are the most afraid are the people who are trying to hold on to their old ideas, their old ways of doing things, and the universe is saying, nope, we're not going to do that. You can either get on this you know, you can get on this train that's going to be fast-tracked into the new dimension, or you can hang on to the old stuff and let yourself be destroyed along with it. So which would you rather be, right? So, yeah, it's possible, but that's not what you want to do. You know, times like this, you know, you really don't have a whole lot of choice. Things are going to change whether you like it or not. So, you know, this is why you want to ask yourself, what is it that I'm resisting? So if you were my client, then I don't want to get into it with you now because I don't have time, but I would ask you, what is it you're trying to resist? Because whatever it is you're trying to resist is exactly what you got to let go of. At the very least, you need to be willing to let go of it. Odin died to himself. He sacrificed himself to himself, which is what I'm feeling this is all about. This is a real powerful time of Odin. You want to know what Odin is all about? It's all about this kind of stuff we're talking about right now. Sacrificing yourself to yourself. He died. It was painful. It was frightening and painful. And what he got from it is he got the runes, the mysteries of the universe. So this is what you get for not resisting the change and going through the potentially very challenging, frightening, painful transformation. So on the other side you get, and I get a really strong hit now from this. I can really feel the effects of this thing coming. You get the benefits of having direct connection to the mysteries of the universe. That's what we want. And I'm really getting a strong hit. That's where we need to be putting our focus. Don't focus on the negativity. Don't focus on the fear. Understand that if the fear comes, it's because whatever the fear is around is something that's not helpful to you. It's like, you know, like I said, disease. People fight to stay sick, by the way. I've worked with people who died rather than get well. They chose to continue to take actions that killed them rather than taking the more painful actions, which were dying to themselves and allowing themselves to heal. Happens all the time. Okay. All right, so wizard thoughts, eclipse ritual advice, please. So the eclipse ritual advice I can give you is that, you know, listen, at the very least, you know, the easiest thing to do is, you know, have a, you know, don't eat a lot. You know, make sure you drink lots of liquids and things like that. Don't starve yourself. Really take time off if you can. Go someplace where you can be alone with your thoughts. If you're a person who this might be challenging for you, then get together with other people who love you and do things that are fun. Invest in relationships and people. Go after the things that give you joy if you're a fearful person. If you're an introspective person like me, then go someplace that is a place of power for you. And be asking yourself, what can I do to change? What can I let go of? What am I willing to release? What am I willing to die to? You know, if you one thing you can do is you can read about Odin's transformation. Read from the Voluspa. Read the Voluspa. And read about Odin dying to himself. Read, you know, it doesn't matter. That's my, you know, personal mythology that I work with, but anything. Read about Hanuman. Read about Rama. You know, read about something that really appeals to you. That's probably the easiest thing I could do. I could get into some deep stuff, you know, what to do and all that, but really, although that in itself is plenty. All right, so let's see what else. Do you generally think something will happen? Well, I do think something will happen. I don't know what you mean by something. Do I think that the world is going to blow up? I don't think that's going to happen. I do think, you know, we'll see if I'm right or not. I really do think we're going to see the fall of Trump. I think there's a very good possibility he will be out of office by the end of this year. We'll see if I'm right. I'm totally happy to be wrong about that. But I think we're going to see that shift. Does that mean that horrible things are going to happen? It might mean the opposite. It might mean, you know, somebody else will come in. It might be that Trump actually brings in what everybody wanted, which is what they saw in him was somebody who was going to come and destroy the establishment and shake, you know, the government up so that things could get done. And he may accomplish that in the negative. You know, that's what Rahu and Ketu do, by the way. Whenever they bring blessings, and they bring blessings, they'll do it in a challenging way. So, you know, if Ketu comes and rips you away from some physical attachment, the end result is that you're going to be freer and happier. If Rahu forces you to take a look at your addictions and your attachments and you choose to let go of them, then you're going to be that much more free. And, you know, it's like let's say you get a better paying job, but you'll get fired from the job that you're at. See what I mean? Something like that. So yeah, I think something's going to happen. What exactly that is, we'll see. Yeah, Renee Michelle, I agree with you. Yes, for you, based on what you're saying to me, yeah, just spend time alone. Take the day off, spend time alone, meditate, avoid people so you don't do anything that you regret. Don't make any big decisions. Maybe don't make any decisions. Just meditate on releasing. You know, if there's a lot of stuff that needs to get that needs to come out, you know, then it's, you know, it's like when you're sick. You know, you stay at home and make sure you're close to the bathroom, right? Same kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Okay, let's see here. I'm looking for the questions. Sorry, my thing makes it difficult for me to follow what's happening because it bounces up and down. How do you think it might affect someone who has a birthday tomorrow? You know, I think it's pretty clear. I think, you know, I would again, I'd have to look at their chart. I don't know where everything is in their chart. So it depends on what time tomorrow and that sort of thing. But yeah, you know, it's your birthday, same kind of thing. Use it as a day to get rid of things that you don't want. Okay, Dropship Fanatics is wanting to thank me. Thank you, I appreciate that. What if you have problems with a daughter? That's too general for me. I'd need more specifics, but that's something, that's kind of something I would do in a counseling session. So I don't know that I can help you with that. Yeah, I don't want to give you bad advice, so I would need more information, and unfortunately this isn't the time to do it. If you really want a session, you can go to astrology.thunderwizard.com and book a session with me and put in the notes that you just want a session, not a reading. Natalia Lokia says, thank you for your responses. Your line, what are the things inside of yourself that have not helped you? Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. Dropship Fanatics is asking me about Lucifer. Did I work with Lucifer? They think that Odin and Thor are friends with him. No, I mean, again, what do you mean by Lucifer? Do you mean the devil? You know, do you mean Satanism? I don't do either of those things. I think Lucifer, you know, again, if you're a Gnostic, which I'm not, but a Gnostic is going to say that Lucifer is the bringer of light, and they're going to talk about that. Again, I'm not into that Western magic kind of thing, so I can't talk about it. You know, you didn't ask me a question. You again said you think. So if you think that Odin and Thor are friends with him, then that's your opinion. I can't comment on that. I don't deal with Satan or Lucifer just because it doesn't fit within my. I think those are later additions that came, and so it just doesn't work for me. Natalia Lokia says, can you please explain the significance of Mani Moon? Divine mind crossing in front of the soul, the universal soul. Is this a union of feminine, masculine energy? Let me think about that for a second. I mean, I guess technically that is true, because you do have the moon, which... See, the thing is that nowadays, sun and moon, sun represents masculine and moon represents feminine. But all planets have both a masculine and a feminine. I've talked about that at length. I won't get into it now. In terms of the sun and the moon do represent polar opposites, so you can, I think. So I guess what I'm saying is I can't say yes or no to that question, because I think it's definitely, there's some truth to it. I guess the reason that I'm getting knocked out of that, you know, looking at the union of male and female, the reason why I'm getting knocked out of that is because we've got this whole Rahu Ketu effect that's coming through. because everything gets turned upside down. Everything, everything's all upside down with that. So I think if I'm intuiting where you're coming from, you're seeing it from a very deep, looking at it through what my teachers would call from the side of the mirror. You're looking at it from the other side of the veil. And so you're seeing a truth there that I don't think a lot of us can experience. So I think for a lot of us, it's just going to be about confronting the shadow self and death and that kind of thing. But I think that you're seeing something very deep and very powerful, which I'm not sure that I have the ability to elucidate that. I kind of get the sense you may know more about that than I do. So if I don't know, I tell you I don't know. And I'm not sure I have the answer. I tried. We'll see. I'm definitely going to meditate on it, though. It's definitely got me thinking. Okay. Wizard Thoughts says, Asbjorn Tovel from Becoming a Living God said that Norse gods will completely destroy your life in order to rebuild it. Has this been your experience? Well, yeah. You guys are bringing up, you guys are stumping me. The one thing I know about the Norse gods, and this is the thing, I don't know if this is just because I have my DNA gets empowered, and it makes me wonder if people, when people work with their ethnic ancestral deities, if this is the experience, or if they have a different experience. The Norse gods are gods of fire. And that is true with all of the northern people, the European people. To understand that, go and watch my video about the Hopi mythology. Because I completely believe in the Hopi myth about the four races and what they were meant to master. And the northern Europeans were meant to master fire. And all of the symbolism associated that, listen, it was the Europeans that came up with electricity and with the atomic bomb and with, the gasoline-powered engine which runs on fire. There's a reason for all of that. So for me, when I began working with the Norse gods, one of the things that happened is that they were very fiery. And so fire does that. Fire is purification. I shared on the last video I made yesterday that I had an experience with Thor, where I had an experience with a deity I'd never had before, where there was an immediate, just very fiery response to something I had said. When I work with the Taoist masters, the Chinese, being the people of the East, according to the Hopi mythology, which I completely, again, agree with, they are masters of the ether element. And so that means that their deities, when you work with them, are going to have a very etheric feeling. Now, ether means subtlety. The way to deal, if you go up to a Chinese master and if you say something disrespectful, what he does is he just nods his head and turns around and walks away. Because that's ether. And the message is very clear. It says, listen, if you want to work with me, you got to work under the proper boundaries. Otherwise, I can't help you. Now, a fire person is going to say, what the hell are you doing talking to me like that? Treat me with respect. I'm your teacher. Then they'll turn and walk away. Or they'll sit you down and they'll give you an earful. But the difference is it's coming from a place of love. This is what I found about that. So I'm not talking about people who are just fiery and destructive. I'm talking about when it comes out, it's very loving. So that fire element is very purifying. And it definitely had that experience with me. And again, I don't know if that's the case with everybody when they connect with their ethnic background deities. I've worked with African deities. I've worked with Vedic deities. I believe to be part of the fire, connected to fire. worked with Taoist energies and deities. So, but I can, I believe that a lot of what happened is that it just awoken, it awoke some DNA stuff within me. Having said that, if people are listening to me and you're not of European descent, it doesn't mean you can't work with the Norse deities. You absolutely can. They'll work with anybody. It just means that there's a possibility. It's like going and visiting somebody, You can even choose to move there and live there if you want. People do that. So I just want to make sure I'm not, stepping on anybody, making people feel like I'm excluding them. I'm not. But there is a benefit to connecting with powers that have a connection to you on a genetic level. Ultimately, they all do because we're all human beings. But anyway, thank you, Natalia Lokia. I agree with you. Like I said, I can feel a lot of things happening here. The closer we get to this, it's like my body's starting to vibrate. I can feel it. Okay, looking for the questions again. So nothing personal if I go past your statement. It's just I'd be here all night if I responded to everything everybody wrote. Okay, again, looking for the question. What does it mean having two personalities in the mind? That's a very deep question. I mean, I'd have to talk to you to find out if we were talking about schizophrenia or multiple personalities, or if we're talking about somebody who's just like a Gemini who has a dual personality. So I'd have to know more to answer that question better. Yeah, I'd have to talk to you to find out. Okay, so I see a question mark there. So Olin's reflection, in my opinion, so there should be a question after that, but here's your opinion. The fifth dimensional shift, or whatever we seek, is necessarily present already. Here's the question. Do you think that some beings are already there, such as yourself, in preparation for others to ascend to? Well, I mean, do I think I've achieved enlightenment? Or have other people achieved enlightenment? I've talked a lot about that, and so here's the thing. Let me share about it this way. I try to make it very clear that I'm a human being, and that I experience the same lessons and challenges that everybody else does. And if you knew me on a personal level, you would know that. But every time that I try, and especially lately, if I try and sort of deprecate myself, the gods jump in immediately and say, don't limit yourself. You don't know your power. So I have to step back. So I don't know where I'm at. Here's the example. I guess I'm struggling with this because I can feel a big ascension coming for myself from all this. There was a guy, he's still around. He was a self-proclaimed enlightened Taoist master who claimed to be the embodiment of the prophet of the Taoist religion, and he created his own Taoist sect. Now, I can honestly say, from having interacted with the guy from afar and seeing what he's done, he's got some personal issues, and so he's very human on that respect. He's not somebody I would want to train with. I wouldn't recommend sending people to train with him. Having said that, I see that he's done things that people have gotten a lot of experiences and power from. And one day I was going after him in my mind, and I was just chopping him to pieces. And I felt, and this is, by the way, right as I was beginning to create my own path, which was the same thing. I was standing out and saying to the world that I'm a self-proclaimed master shaman of Norse, Teutonic, blah, 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 whatever. And so I was projecting onto him my own self-doubt. And so as I was chopping him apart, and I wasn't wrong, you know, if you were to see him and you were to hear me talk about him, I would have been completely right. But when I started, in my head, started saying that there's no way that this guy is the next incarnation of the Taoist blah blah blah, and that the highest god of the Taoist pantheon has appeared to him, and something in me said, how do you know? How do you know that him, even with all of his faults and all of his craziness and all of his clear, you know, problems and blind sides, how do you know he has not been chosen to be the vessel through which the highest god of the Taoist pantheon has decided to create that the new Taoist emanation of Taoism? How the heck do you know that? And I had to stop, and I said, I don't. And then I started thinking in a whole completely different way, that people are chosen as channels and conduits in spite of or because of their limitations. You know, and so I see it differently. That's why when I do mention teachers that I take you know, a different opinion on, I do say, listen, they are operating from truth, that they are intuiting truth, and they are destined to be whatever it is. But here's where I see them as being incomplete. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but yeah. I will, yeah, see, there's something I want to say, and I just can't say it right now. The energies just won't let me say it. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so people connecting with each other, that's great. Alright, so looking for the questions. Romneon Germany says, I have a question about the last video. Where did the idea come from that people use these symbols to harm people? Do you really... do I really need to answer that? Or wait, maybe I'm not hearing your question right. Where did the idea come from that people use... Well, the idea that people use these symbols to harm people comes from the reality that people use these symbols to harm other people. I'm just, at this point, I'm not even going to put the time and effort into stating what is obvious to me. Maybe you haven't seen it. You know, it's been there in history. I'm just not going to go through it. You know, World War II. Okay, World War II. There was a very famous symbol used by the Germans that has been used and associated with hate, and it is actually an ancient symbol of transformation. Okay, so looking for the questions again. Looking for the questions. I was kind of expecting this today, that there was going to be a lot of questions. Okay, there's a question for Black Earth. That's not for me. Okay, Northern Light says, as a Norwegian, I really don't know a lot about the Vikings, but as I watched an episode of the Vikings, it was all about gore, blood, violence, as if they were satanic. What is true history? Go on to my channel and thunderwizard.com YouTube channel and type in Vikings, and you will see at least one video come up where I talk about what I believe the Vikings were. Listen, the Vikings, you know, show on television is a television show. It's got so many historical inaccuracies. You know, I wouldn't take that as meaning anything. It's just a show. So yeah, you know, I would love to talk about it, but I'd be talking about it all night. So go on my channel and look for Vikings, and you can hear me talk about in depth what that is. Okay. God, I wish this thing wouldn't do that. I scroll down, and then when somebody adds it, it pops up and goes all over the place, and then I gotta scroll up to find it. Go back to where I was. All right. All right. So forgive me if I miss questions. I just got to keep moving along here. Oh, okay, so that's not for me. Oh, here we are. How can we use the rune wheel to facilitate this year shift? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. I guess one way to do it is during the eclipse. You can do a 9-world rune reading for yourself. And that would be one powerful way to do it. Olin's reflection, let me see. Okay, that's not a question. Question, Black Earth Production. What planets are going to be conjunct during the eclipse? Trying to find this at the moment. You know, that's a good question. I don't have the chart in front of me, so you know, the planets that are going to be conjunct are going to be the sun and the moon. They're going to be completely conjunct. Anyway, I don't know how to answer your question. I don't know. But that's a good question. I'll look at that when I get off. Okay, what is your favorite rune if you had to pick one? I can't pick a favorite one because that's like saying which one of your kids do you like most. I mean, which finger do you like better? You know? I can tell you that the rune that's coming up now is the Yuhwaz rune, which is spelled in English E-I-H-W-A-Z, the rune of transformation. And I call it the Yuhwaz rune because we don't have the letter. We don't use that letter in even in most modern Germanic languages. We don't use that letter anymore. But the tree that it's connected to, it's named after the yew tree, which is pronounced yew. So that's why I call it the Yuhwaz tree, and the Yuhwaz rune, because it's the rune of transformation, involuntary transformation. So that's the one I would pick for today. All right, so looking for questions. It does that thing where it bounces. I'm just trying to slowly scroll through here. Don't make it jump. Okay, again, looking for questions. Yeah, Black Earth. Yeah, I don't know what planets are going to be conjunct. I don't have the. I haven't. Strangely enough, I haven't put the chart up for the eclipse yet. So, how can we best benefit others aside, Natalia Lokia says, how can we best benefit others aside from the obvious internal necessary spiritual work during this solar eclipse? Would it be a good time to bless and use ritual for others, or is that intrusive? Well, I don't necessarily think it's intrusive. I thought about that a lot myself. I guess what I would say is that if there's somebody that's deeply connected to your orlog, like a spouse or family member or a partner, somebody that you have a contract with, a child, that kind of thing, then I think it's beneficial to do it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it for other people. I guess my feeling is that these kinds of things, the eclipses, are such an internal, personal thing that I think that that's what the focus should really be on ourselves. Like, that's just my take. I think people should follow their intuition. For instance, there are some people, and I'm not saying you're one of these people, but there are some people who part of their challenges is that they live their lives for other people. They're people pleasers, or they're constantly helping others, or they can't, their identity is completely wrapped up in what they do for other people, and they end up, avoiding themselves. Times like this are going to tear them away from that and make them focus on themselves, and that's why for some people it can be challenging, because they're going to be completely out of their comfort zone. So that would be my thought about that. Okay, so somebody's dropship fanatic, so I'm assuming you're new to the channel. So one question is, I only speak about the 9 worlds. What other worlds do I know of? So again, I am coming from a perspective that this is my shamanic path. So I'm not saying there are or there aren't other worlds. What I am saying is that the 9 worlds of the world tree are the blueprint. And so that's what is important for me to focus on. I'm not really interested in trying to figure out how many other worlds there are, that kind of thing. It's not kind of like that New Age thing of, oh, let's see how weird we can get. We're dealing with a science. So what other worlds there are, I'm sure there are others, I don't really know. But to get the most out of this path, we focus on the 9 worlds, and there's plenty within those 9 worlds. We don't need to make more. Okay, so. Alright, so the more questions are coming in, which is great. But I need to take a little bit of a break. Get myself centered. So let's just go ahead and do some business. And then I will come back and take some more questions and see where this takes us today. A lot of great questions. In fact, a lot of really great questions today. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so I had to turn the lights on because it's, even though the sun's still out, it's starting to get a little dark out there. So there's a lot of questions, so I'm just going to keep going with the questions here. Alright, so Theo Walker says, how is it that the coming alignment of the sun and the moon and earth can produce its effects on the consciousness of our planet? You know, that's a deep question that, you know, I would launch me into a bunch of psychological and philosophical whatever. I don't know that I have the strength to go into all that right now. So we're just going to operate from the assumption that it does have an effect on us. The short answer, I suppose, is that the planets, we all know that the sun and the moon does affect us. So that's not even up for debate. Scientifically, that does. But the idea is that from an astrological perspective, that the planets vibrate with our karmic issues. And so how the planets align are a reflection of what's happening to us on an internal karmic level. And that's how it affects us. Okay. Can this mass meditation for the eclipse be a trap? Northern Lights, I don't know if you're new to my channel or not, but what is it that I say? Drop all fear-based beliefs. Drop it. It's a waste of your time. The universe is here to serve you. You chose to be in this universe. You chose to be in this matrix. Stop fearing all that garbage. Stop it. Get out of your boy, I'm getting really loopy here. Get out of your reptilian brainstem, which sees things in two-dimensional fight or flight. Doesn't serve you. Okay, again, looking for questions. Okay, again, if you want to catch my attention, you've got to either put a question mark or something so I know it's a question. I just happen to see that this person is asking a question even though they didn't make it abundantly clear. Just got here, wanted to know if practicing yin-yang hands during the eclipse is a good idea. I have level 1 of Celestial Qigong. I'm hesitating because I'm not sure. My initial reaction is that the yin-yang hands is very powerful and it creates this dynamic, I mean, it's really powerful stuff. It's like creation of the world. So my first reaction to that is that doing something, you know, like for instance, just holding the left hand up and the right hand down because it's on the mirror side. So you want to go with the flow of the energy. So I would, you know, this would be the positive side, right? This, and you've seen a lot of people meditate this way. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing or not. My right hand here, my left hand is here. So this, you see a lot of like statues in this with the right hand up and the left hand underneath. That's because this is the way the world is. This is with the masculine in control, which means the manifestation. So when we have an eclipse, we're on the mirror side. Everything gets flipped around. So I would take the left hand and put it here, and I wouldn't do the whole thing. I wouldn't do all that. I would just keep the left hand here and the right hand here, because what you want to do is you want to then be able to experience what's happening on the flip side. So that's one way to lean into the other side. Then when you're done, when the eclipse goes past, then I would go ahead and do the whole thing to balance everything out. But I wouldn't do the whole thing because there's a lot of really intense yin energy coming out. A lot of, and I don't mean yin so much as in female energy. I just mean yin in meaning like the dark side, the flip side of things. So that's why that was a great question. I hadn't thought of that, but that would be my first thought about that. But bear in mind, eclipse is a very powerful thing. If you're not ready to deal with that energy, then just like stay at home and meditate. Okay, Natalia Lokia says, Teacher Michael, in your experience, what other natural phenomenon such as solar eclipses can be used to channel energy for deep spiritual change? Lunar eclipses and new moons, full moons, those to me are the most powerful ones that I know of. Again, you ask a really great question. I just don't know. I don't have any more answers for that. I'm sure there are. I just don't have them at this time. But thanks for that question. Okay. Olin's reflection. Okay, so talking to other people. Oh, Ramnian Germany says, oh, one very important question. When we finish reincarnation, are our experiences somehow saved? Because I'm scared when I reincarnate, I will lose my progress. Yeah, again, what do I say about fear-based beliefs? Drop them. That's a fear-based question. It's okay to have the question. I'm not giving you a hard time for the question, but again, operate from the understanding that the universe is here to help you. And of course, you're not going to lose your progress. You have the assumption that you need to remember everything in order to keep your progress. You don't. If that were true, none of us would would progress, because we'd go back to the beginning and forget everything. So your soul knows what your soul will remember what it needs to remember. Is there some kind of war between the spirits? Wow, you're about to ask a really good question here, because I was just about to start saying, well, you know, this question isn't helpful, but then when I saw where it was going, okay, is there some kind of war between the spirits? I see that Odin hates Jesus, and Lucifer speaks of some war. Well, assuming that Lucifer exists, meaning like Satan, I don't buy into Satan existing. You know, this is what Yahweh needs. Yahweh is the ego. Have you ever noticed that? 1984? You know, and even political things now. We're looking for the enemy, you know, and, you know, this is the greatest way to distract people from critical thinking. You put up in front of them an invincible, all evil enemy that is threatening your entire existence. And it mobilizes people, it gets them into the reptilian brainstem, and then the people in power stay in power. So whenever you hear a politician talking about the such and such threat that's been around for decades, whatever it is, and that nothing has really changed, they're using that to instill fear in you so that you won't think critically, so that you will allow them to do all the things that they want to do in order to make money off of you. So this is what Satan is, because the Yahweh, and by the way, when I talk about disparagingly about Yahweh, I'm not talking about anybody's ethnicity, because the ancient Hebrew religion was a polytheist religion, and they worshipped the same gods with different names that all the other polytheists do. So this has nothing to do with their ethnicity. It has to do with the religion that was created, which is the exact same thing that Europeans did later through Christianity. Yahweh is the ego, and the ego, in order to take control and rule everything, wants to create an enemy. That's the reptilian mind. That's why people now, that's why born-again Christians now are really starting to buy into this whole reptilian thing. They believe that the reptilians are here to suck the life force out of them, and they equate them with the devil. So that only exists if you live in fear. If you choose to live there, then that's going to be your reality. So that war exists. But the war between Odin and Jesus. I wrote a book. I wrote a book called Odin Says Jesus Was a Coward. So I would be a complete hypocrite if I started launching into something saying there is no such war between Odin and Jesus. First off, I don't think Jesus literally existed. Neither did Odin, but Odin never claimed to literally exist. Odin exists on another plane. I think Jesus does exist because people have projected him into the spiritual realm. So when people do pray, there is an actual Jesus projection that they interact with, which is closely related to the planet Jupiter and deities associated with Jupiter. But you know, you know, the whole war between Lucifer and Yahweh's angels, it exists, it is true, but it is a representation of an extreme view between the ego and the negative parts of the individual that rebel against authority. Anyway, I could go deeper than that. So you know, I don't live like that. I see that the universe is a place of dynamic balance. So you know, these ideas of people getting into wars, I think, is going in some other. Anyway, I'm losing my strength on that one, so I'm going to move on. Thank you for the question. What kind of magic is appropriate to do on solar eclipse? I talked about that. The most valuable kind of magic is to intend your greatest future. So I say pick one thing in your life that you want to change, and pick one thing that is connected to some kind of negative self-sabotage, something in you that's preventing you from achieving something or having something or being something, and focus on that. And during the eclipse, do some kind of a ritual where you eradicate the negative, the self-sabotaging aspects within yourself. Focus on what it is, the ideal perfection that you want to become, and use this time to whatever magic you want to use. So I'm not giving you a specific kind of magic, but that should be the focus. Whatever kind of magic you use, I think, not should, that could be a powerful focus. Is it okay to use a mantra during celestial qigong? The thing for celestial qigong, I would use the Hul. If you don't know what the Hul breath is, go and look that up on my That's good for everybody. If you just want to have one practice, the Hul breath, that would be an excellent practice. Yeah, I'm having anyway. Go to my channel and just type in HUUL breath, and you'll see what that is. But to answer your question, during celestial qigong, I would do the qigong first, then do a mantra meditation afterwards. But when it comes to mantra and celestial qigong, you got to know what you're doing. So that's why I suggest getting a Vedic reading from me, and make sure that the mantra that you're doing is really aligned to you, because if you do celestial qigong, whatever mantra you do afterwards is going to be magnified hundreds of times. So if it's not the right mantra for you, it could potentially cause some issues. I had some problems with that. So the safest thing to do is, if you don't know whether or not the mantra you have is really aligned to you, then I wouldn't do it, just out of safety. But generally speaking, I'm still kind of having second thoughts about the Hul breath during the eclipse. Follow your instinct on that one. But generally speaking, the Hul breath is actually really powerful to use for everybody. After doing the celestial qigong, sit and do the earth meditation. That's really powerful. May I ask what you do for a living? You're looking at it. Do you find your job to be a source of stress or happiness? I love my job. My mantra is make money doing what you would do anyway. That's what I do. Okay, Natalia Lokia says, this may be quite a personal question. Feel free to ignore it. But I want to let go of my delusions and attachments during the eclipse, such as lies, pride, addiction, malice. What will I let go of? Yeah, again, I don't want to talk about my personal practice, for the reason of, when you're dealing with a really powerful practice coming up that you're doing, you're not supposed to talk about it. And the reason that you're not supposed to talk about it is that your ego kicks in. So I'm going to be working to help that, so it's best if I don't specifically say what I'm doing. But thank you for the question. Okay, again, looking for the questions. Looking for the questions. Gosh, this thing jumps all over the place when I'm trying to follow. I agree with you, Josh Bone. I hate it when people use our ancestral spiritual traditions for things they were never meant for. I completely agree with you. Theo Walker says, how do the alignments of the sun, moon, and earth, like chakras, each with their own unique properties and consciousness, alternative effects, produce their alignments, knowable effects on the people of earth? Huge question. I don't even understand it. It's so huge. I'm just going to try and see if I can simplify it. How do the alignments How do the alignments produce knowable effects on the people of Earth? I think I kind of already talked about that. Go back and watch. I talk about it at the very beginning. Go and watch that. But thank you for the question. Yeah, Romney on Germany. I don't know what the block is here that you can't see how people... I mean, are you talking about Norse mythology? You know, yeah, people have used Norse mythology and aspects of Norse mythology in very negative ways. It's great that if you've never seen that, that's great. Let's see. I'm looking for a question. Gosh, don't do that. All right, question. Jade River, are these techniques a part of the dualistic matrix trap? Why are you asking that question? Is that your opinion? Obviously, I don't think so, because I teach people mantras and I use Eastern religion, whatever that means. Again, Jade, I don't know where you're coming from. I don't know if you're a born-again Christian. I don't know maybe you're new to my channel. I never teach anything. I would never teach anything that I would think is part of the dualistic matrix trap. But the whole idea of a trap is fear-based. And so go back and watch what I say about what the matrix is. The matrix is only a trap if you operate from fear. Then it's a trap. If you release the fears and accept that everything in the universe is trying to help you, then you don't have to worry about falling into a trap. The biggest trap is the belief that things are out to trap you. That's the biggest trap. So for you it is. Because you're asking that question, at the very least there is the possibility that it is a trap for you, because you have that fear that there's something out there that you don't know, whether it's Eastern religion or whether it's the devil or whether it's the moon matrix or whether it's the reptilians. They're out to trap you. Then it will. Again, I talk about that at length. Watch my videos on the matrix. Okay, Romney on Germany says if he followed his deepest desires, it would be crazy. Well, maybe you need to become crazy. Doesn't sound crazy to me what you just said. Those sound like very reasonable things. That's what I am. Even though I'm not technically a psychotherapist, musician, and spiritual teacher at the same time. I function with all of those hats. So if that's crazy, then I'm crazy too. Okay, Leah Kingbird says, I've been doing the Hool breath and I have found it to be extremely powerful. And what mantra, or what you call it, what is for Freya? Freya is Venus. So, if we're talking about a mantra, the Hool breath technically isn't a mantra in the same way like a Vedic mantra is, but it operates on the same principles. If you wanted a mantra like a Vedic mantra, then you would want to get a mantra that is connected to the planet Venus. But if you don't want to go that far, you can just make up a song or a chant to Freya. That in itself, and when I got a real happy vibe when I said that. So maybe that's what you're supposed to do. Okay. George Garanci says, can you choose what aspects? Excuse me. Can you choose what aspects of yourself you wish to let go of? Well, you can choose. Why wouldn't you be able to choose? Will it be out of your control? There may be things that you're not consciously aware of, so it would feel like you were out of control. But my experience is that your intuition kind of knows, and the way you know is you can just simply ask yourself, what is it that I need to get rid of? Then if that doesn't work, then you ask yourself, what is it I'm afraid the eclipse is going to take away from me? If I say to you, the eclipse is going to be this giant apocalypse that's going to take everything away from you, what is the first thing that pops in your mind that you're afraid you're going to lose? That's the thing you need to, at the very least, change your relationship with. You know, like if you're afraid you're going to lose all your money, then there's a fear-based relationship about money. So the thing to do is you say, I want to lose my fear-based relationship to money. See how that works? It doesn't mean you lose your money. It just means that, you know, you've obviously, I'm assuming that's, you know, for whomever, that would be the issue. All right. Natalia Lokia says, do these natural phenomenon affect beings and other 9 planes, such as the 9 worlds? Man, Natalia, you got some deep questions. I never thought about that. First answer is yes. Yes, because the planets are also portals to other dimensions. And so how they align and how they affect us affects them and the beings in those worlds as well. Yeah, I could go really deep into that. So the short answer is yes. Will those reincarnating in hell feel the effects of the eclipse? Well, now we have to start looking at things from a holographic perspective, because hell, the underworld, not the Christian hell, in case you're new to my channel, hell is the underworld where the soul goes to heal itself and balance itself and reincarnate if it has unresolved desires that need to be experienced. Will the souls in hell? The answer I'm getting is yes. And remember that the underworld is also your unconscious. So everything outside of you is also inside of you. In fact, that's the rule. The rule is everything you see is your own projection. So that means all of the 9 worlds are projected from you. So the answer is yes. And, you know, we could look at it, which came first, the chicken or the egg. Are the astrological events merely the reflection of the changes that are happening within you? Or are you changed as a result of the astrological effects? So, yeah, I tend to believe that everything is our projection. So it's more like it is manifesting in the external world what changes are already happening with us. That's why, you know, this isn't going to affect everybody. It's going to affect some people more than others. Okay, so... All right, again, so Romney on Germany, you know, if you want to ask a question, I'll answer it. I'm glad that you have opinions, but I'm really looking for questions. Dean Nevins, are mental constructs like countries, businesses, etc. affected by astrology based on the time and place of their inception? Yes. Short answer, yes. Okay, let's see here. Questions? Why is it that when a thing travels through space that it doesn't duplicate itself or produce a physical delay? I do not understand that question. Either you're talking about some really deep physics that I don't understand, or yeah, I don't even understand that question, so I can't answer it. Don't even know if it's yeah, can't answer it. All right. Dean Nevins, how are the spiritual effects of ginseng different and better than coffee? Really? You're asking me that question? Ginseng is a stimulant, but it's an adaptogen, meaning that it works with, you know, works with your body and with the organs, and it helps balance things. Coffee is a stimulant that it's one of the worst things you can put in your body. Sorry, I don't have any judgment. If you want to drink coffee, go ahead, but it's one of the worst things you can put in your body. It stimulates the adrenal glands, and that's why people get a rush from it and then they crash. It's also one of the reasons why people are addicted to it, because whenever you take anything, whether it's a power plant or whether it's coffee or whether it's cigarettes or alcohol or whatever, sugar, anything that you take that forcibly makes the glands secrete things, you know, in your body that affect you, then what happens is the glands then become dependent upon that chemical, And so that's why you go through withdrawals. So coffee is one of the most addicting substances out there. I drank it for years. It was I think quitting coffee was the worst. And I'm talking about I quit drugs and cigarettes and alcohol and you know, other mind-altering chemicals. I quit them all, man, and they were really tough. But coffee, if I'm remembering, was the worst. Quitting cigarettes was really hard too. So yeah, it's also, besides the caffeine overstimulating the adrenal glands, just the other stuff, the acids and other things in coffee literally strip the protective sheath off of your nerves. That's why people are fried all the time. So it's horrible. But, you know, do it if you want. You're not a bad person if you do it. But that's how. Okay, well, let's see here. All right, again, looking for questions. I'm not seeing any questions. A lot of stuff going on. Hey, listen. If you want to drink coffee, you have my blessing. Go right ahead. One thing at a time. You know, one thing at a time. When you're ready, if and when, you can drop coffee, but go right ahead. All right. So let me see here. We're out of questions, which is surprising to me. So I'm going to take a break and see where I want to go next. I know there was other things I wanted to talk about I didn't get to. So let's give me a second here. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about now. Now, you saw me throw up the little picture there from, you know, I think I got that from some Christian website, because there's some born-again Christian apocalypse seekers who are saying that this is from Revelations. I used to be really into it. I used to know it by heart, you know, 35, 40 years ago. But talking about the apocalypse and the end of the world and the rapture and all that kind of stuff and the second coming of Jesus. And so, you know, assuming that's right, I haven't investigated, but let's just assume for argument's sake that they're right, that there is some alignment of the planets that's going to happen on the 23rd, and that the 23rd of September, and that this eclipse tomorrow is going to be the herald. It's going to herald that event. It's going to start the ball rolling. Let's assume all that is true. You know, people are talking about it. So again, when people are talking about it, something's happening somewhere. The universe, something's coming to the surface. And if what they say is true, that there's going to be this alignment that doesn't happen, you know, except once every 7,000 years, then that could potentially be pretty impactful. So let's just assume, for argument's sake, that, you know, everything I said in the beginning of the video, watch it, go back after it's archived, go back and watch it. You know, all the things that could potentially mean a total world-changing event in terms of politics, or at the very least our interaction with the powers that be in terms of politics. That could be a total shifting of worlds. So now let's take it and bring it closer. And so this idea, whenever we talk about, you know, whenever the thought of the apocalypse comes up, the thought of, you know, the biblical apocalypse of the world is going to end and Satan is going to rise, and, you know, the war of all wars, and, you know, the end of life as we know it, and then, you know, Jesus is going to come and take people out. You know, that kind of world-changing event, which is, I think this here is a great symbol of that. You know, this is, when we think about it, our deepest fears about having the world completely change. You know, the collision of two worlds coming together, obliterating our world, obliterating them both. Well, this symbol, and whether we're talking about Ragnarok, whether we're talking about the biblical apocalypse, or whether we're talking about Nibiru coming in and crashing into the earth or changing everything, what this represents is our fear of losing all of the things that we depend on for our security. And so events like apocalypse, I keep saying apocalypse instead of eclipse. Events like eclipses, what they do is they bring in the possibility for us to completely have our world completely, totally obliterated and replaced with a new one. So that may mean that nothing physically changes. You know, it doesn't mean that your house is going to get hit by an asteroid. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that at the very least on an internal level, there is a possibility that you will have a complete fundamental shift and your world will be obliterated. So let's talk about here. This is cool. I haven't had an excuse to talk about this, but I love this. I got to give credit where credit is due. I forget the guy's name. Very, very famous heathen, the big heathen rune scholar. I forget his name. Stephen Flowers. I saw his definition of the word world, and it sounded good to me. Sounded right. For him, he says that world is made up of two worlds, Wer and Auld. A-U-L-D. Old. Wer, old. Wer means physically man, like the male of the species, and old means time. So it's more like you have your world, meaning the world that is created, not just the physical earth that you walk on, but the world that you create, that you project into your life. We have a world, you know, if the world were to come to an end, that could mean all kinds of things. It could mean that there would be some kind of magnetic disturbance which would knock out all of electricity and all of the computers, and, you know, we would have to go back to a completely different way of functioning. The world would still exist, but the way that we interacted with it would totally come to an end, and we'd have to come up with a new way. You know, the invention of the internet completely changed the world. The invention of the telephone completely changed the world. The invention of, you know, picket, you know, domesticating horses and learning to ride horses, totally changed those people's world. So this is an opportunity to have your world completely obliterated and replaced with something even better. You know, again, like in the 20s, the stock market crash completely changed the world, except for people who were living in direct connection to their environment. But if your whole life was based upon the stock market, then yeah, everything got obliterated. So there are things that we think have substance that don't, but they're our world. They're our where old man time. The man time. And the way that, you know, I don't know if you're able to pick up what I feel when I think of the word world, where old. Time, man time, man projection, human projection. The projection into our world. And while I'm on it, there was something else I wanted to talk about called counter projection. So let's talk about it before I forget. So again, I'm a armchair psychologist, and so those of you who work with me, when it's appropriate, I'll deal with, my best appropriation of psychology to help you. So there's this psychological concept, I believe it's a Freudian concept, called projection. Projection is when you project your feelings onto other people, meaning, I've used this example before, somebody who is a serial cheater in a relationship. Let's say a guy who cheats on his wife. And so he's constantly running around with this guilt because he cheats on his wife. But every time he's around his wife, he's sure she's looking at other men. And he is suspicious. What's on your phone? Who did you just text? Who have you been emailing? Might even go so far as to getting software to break into her email to see if she's having an online affair. So from his perspective, he is seeing things and he's feeling that she's cheating on him. But what's really happening is that unconsciously he is projecting all of his guilt onto her. Of course, unconscious meaning he's unaware of it, so he doesn't know he's doing it. So that's called projection. Happens all the time. Now there's this other aspect called counter projection. So, again, I made a video yesterday about my discomfort with racists and their use of the symbols of my ancestral path. This is one of them. Racists use this symbol in a way it was never meant to be used. And so they are projecting. These are people who are full of fear, who are extremely uncomfortable with themselves, who are very, very insecure about who they are. And so they're only comfortable when they surround themselves with people that they feel are like them. Then they feel safe. Anybody else who makes them feel different makes them very uncomfortable. And so they project all of their hatred and insecurity onto these other people. They call them all kinds of names and say that they are not, whatever, they're inferior. That's because they feel inferior. Whatever things they say about these people, that's because that's how they feel about themselves. But to actually own up to those feelings about yourself is so intolerable, and we all do it. I'm just, this is what racists do, but everybody does it. When there's something that's so intolerable about how we feel about ourselves, we project it onto others, and we say, that person. Little kids do it all the time. Some kid will say, you're stupid, and the kid will respond back, no, you're stupid. Right? So then there's this thing called counter projection. And so I want you to think about this because, again, I'll talk about racists. Racists create counter projection. Look at the hatred, just on the news here. We had the Charlottesville violence, and people had very strong reactions towards the racists. And then there was another planned protest in Boston. And even though it was potentially a more mild protest, there were something like 40,000 anti-racist protesters that came out to annihilate the racists. And so that's an example of counter-projection. Here are people who, if you were to take the majority of them out of that, the counter-protesters, the anti-fascist people. A lot of them, if you were to take them out, these are people who work for equality. They work for, all kinds of things that we would consider to be really wonderful, healing things. But in this instance, they are willing to act in very violent ways towards these racists. So what has happened is that the racists have created counter-projection. So what counter-projection does is it ends up justifying the original projection. Let me give you an example. Let me go back to the original example I talked about. Let's say there's a guy who's cheating on his wife. Because he feels guilty, he projects onto his wife that his wife is cheating on him. So that makes him act in such a way where he's constantly harassing his wife, accusing her of cheating on him, you know, treating her poorly, being mean to her, being selfish with her. What is her response going to be? She's going to want to cheat on him just so she can be with somebody who will love her and treat her with kindness and love. And so she will manifest what he's projecting on her, which he will then see. He'll eventually find that she's cheating on him, and then he will feel justified in his original projection. Now, I don't know if I'm understanding counter projection right or not, but that's what I saw when I looked it up, and I thought it was amazing. Here are these people, peace-loving people, right, who are all about peace and love, but when you start coming at them and projecting onto them that they're inferior, that they're less than, that they're all these negative things that they don't think they are, and when you use the threat of violence, all of a sudden then they then become the very thing you were afraid of them being. They end up justifying your fear of them. And so I'm bringing this up not to start any conversations with anybody about any of that stuff. I want you to ask yourself, how do I create this counter projection in my life? What unconscious projections do I keep putting out into my life that cause people and the world to then create a counter projection which justifies it? Another example is the whole idea of reptilians. You know, I've said that reptilians exist. I've told you about my experience as a little kid. I saw one. I told you about how the founder of modern shamanism, Michael Harner, shared about when he was given ayahuasca, that he felt himself go into his reptilian brain, where he met the reptilians who told him that they were going to kill him, and that they were the masters of Earth, and that they had founded the Earth and seeded the Earth with human beings so that human beings could be their slaves. And when he came out of that, when he was brought out of that trance, he told it to the shaman, and the shaman said, yeah, they always say that. So the reptilians exist, but only if you live in your reptilian brainstem. And if you live in your reptilian brainstem, you project onto your reality the fear of reptilians, which makes them materialize. And guess what happens? They do to you everything you're afraid of. So that's why I keep telling everybody, drop all the fear-based beliefs. It's not that you're wrong, it's just which universe do you want to live in? Do you want to live in the universe where there are alien beings who take you captive and keep you trapped in a computer program so they can suck the life out of you? Or do you want to live in a universe that is your creation, that responds to you when you are living in alignment with your eternal soul, that you can literally create everything that you imagine? Which universe do you want to live in? And then ask yourself, if your response is to fight against me and say that that doesn't exist, you don't understand, you're living in a false reality, and that, you know, there are these beings or Satan or whatever it is. If that is your first response, I want to ask you, what benefit do you get by holding on to that belief? It's obvious you don't want to live that way. Obviously you don't want to live in a universe where evil reptilian beings can eat your soul and destroy you. But if you want to fight with me and argue with me about why that exists, why do you want to hold on to that? What is the payoff? What is the emotional payoff in holding on to a belief that doesn't serve you? This is what this eclipse is all about. ask yourself, what is it that I'm defending? What really ineffective life belief strategy am I holding on to that doesn't help me? I'll give you an example in myself. In the beginning, I was talking about how, you know, the Eden that could be created. If everybody, even the people that I am politically, you know, on the other side of the fence, you know, from my limited perspective, they're totally wrong and they're being completely deceived. Both sides feel the same way. You're totally wrong. You're being completely deceived. The elites are deceiving you. And if you could just wake up to the propaganda and then vote in the right, you know, my candidate, then everything would be okay. And I said that, you know, I didn't believe that the other side was going to do that. Well, what benefit is there for me to hold on to that? That's the question I'm going to ask myself after this is, how does it benefit me? Why am I clinging to that belief that the other side is always going to be wrong? Is it that I'm afraid of what would happen if things actually went according to my fantasy? This is where we're at. This is a nexus point where this eclipse, if you choose to accept it, it's as if there's all of these different portals. People ask about different worlds. One way to look at it is this is where all of the 9 worlds line up into one window. And it's a time where you can say, okay, I have a split second where I can create a completely new everything. So instead of seeing this as being this, right? Rahu and Ketu coming to destroy your world. The other way to look at it is that it's a split-second opportunity where infinity is aligned, all of the laws are upside down, and all of the worlds line up, and the Gununga gap is lined up in front of you. And you have an instant to create a brand new world. But the thing is, in order to travel to this new world, you can't take any luggage with you. You don't know what's going to be on the other side. But you can't take any of your luggage with you. If you want to travel on this plane, you can't take any luggage. And you can't take any money. Can't take any clothes. Can't take anything with you. You got to leave everything behind. If you're willing to do that, then this is a time when you can create anything you can imagine. So I haven't told people exactly what I'm going to do or what I'm going to think of, but that, to me, that's how powerful I see this. And I'm slowly coming to get comfortable with the idea, because if I really allow myself to see what could potentially be coming my way, I'll tell you, it's scary. It's exciting and frightening and all that kind of stuff. But that's how I want you to view it. It's all of a sudden this portal, this vortex, that if you step through, you'll go, you know, you'll travel 3 trillion miles, 3 trillion years. You know, it's a jump ahead. And so you have to be willing to be in true alignment with your soul. That's why it's a death. You know, death is death, and there's a death and a resurrection. So in order to get that resurrection, you got to lose everything. So what are you afraid of losing? That's what I'm asking. Okay. So I think you get the point here. Let's see. I haven't looked to see if there's any questions. Let's see if there are any questions here. All right, so again, I have to scroll up and find out where I was before so I can start where I was. Okay, here we go. All right. I don't know Tonsi Castellan. I don't know who Simon Parks is. If there was a world direction to work with during the eclipse, would it be Elfhome? If I had to pick one, I would say Asgard, because the powers that are potentially being released most powerfully are in Hellhome. So if in doubt, work with the northeast direction. You can also work with the northwest. So yeah, if your instinct is to work with the elf home, that's also really good. I thought about that too, and I still haven't made up my mind. But if in doubt, face Asgard. But if you want to be to deal with the ancestors and get some really deep advice, work with the northwest. Yeah, both of those will work very powerfully. Natalia Lokia asks, why don't you wear a beard? I'm assuming you're asking me. I did have a little beard for a while. It's real simple. The reason I don't wear a beard is that my fiance gets really turned on with my shaved face and my shaved head. And so, what can I say? I like love. There you go. Okay, again, looking for the questions. Looking for the questions. Questions, questions, questions. You guys are talking with each other, which is great. Happy to see you helping each other out. Kafefi. All right, let's see. Again, looking for a question. Yeah, again, it's great. You guys have some people want to throw their opinions out. I'm only interested in my opinion, but I am interested in your questions. Let's see. Yeah, it's not. This is a truly live video. It's not on a loop. Okay. All right. So I'm not seeing any questions. I'm going to stop looking up there. Okay. Kevin Decker says, I have a question about Rahu. Again, the best way to get my attention is if you actually put a question mark. I'm looking for the question marks. I have a question about Rahu. And then he says, in my birth chart, Rahu is conjunct with Sun in the 11th house, and I'm currently running a Rahu Mahadasha with Rahu Antardasha. Woo! With the eclipse coming tomorrow, I'm worried. Don't be worried. Your 11th house is your house of gains. So the 11th house is what gives you all of the stuff, man. If you're going to win the lottery, it's going to be in your 11th house. If you're going to be successful, I have Rahu in my 11th house. And as I get older, I am getting more and more successful. I hadn't even thought about that. Thank you for bringing that up. But if you're going through a Rahu Mahadasha, now let's see, without seeing your chart, of course, you have to look at a billion things. But one of the things you look for in a chart during an eclipse is, are you going through a Rahu Mahadasha? You're going through a Rahu Mahadasha and Antardasha. So that means you're getting super effects of Rahu right now. An eclipse, this is huge. It's in your 11th house. So this is I'm going to tell you that this is a very powerful placement. And so I would look at it as exactly what I said. Look at it as Rahu's coming in to destroy your world, but it's all going to be all the stuff you don't need. And then he's going to turn around and create a brand new world, which is going to focus on your 10th house. The 11th house gives to the 10th house. That's why it's the house of gains. So you could win the lottery. You could become, the king of the universe. So I would look at it that way. So the best way to make use of it is to look at it as really happy, welcome Rahu coming in, and think about, I'm getting rid of all the stuff I don't need, and I'm getting everything I've ever wanted, and align yourself with your soul desire. So the thing I would be asking you to ask yourself is, okay, what is my deepest soul desire? And focus on that. Or if you don't know, say, Rahu, tell me what my deepest soul desire is. That's what I would do. So don't be worried at all. You should be really, really stoked. All right, Garrett, your birthday is on August 21st. I need so much more information than that. I don't give astrological readings on here. If you want a reading from me, go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. Okay, Clash and Chara, what time tomorrow is the eclipse? That depends on where you live. You can look it up. Okay. Question. Emerson's Coffee, Bike, and Rum Shop. You changed your name. Got a much bigger name now. Question. I have an appointment with you Wednesday. I always feel the moon's a day before or after. What is the reach of the solar eclipse and how would this affect readings you do for people? Are you saying that you're worried that the eclipse is going to affect our reading? I wouldn't worry about it. Again, the universe works everything out the way it's supposed to. So, just I guess accept that that's what is going to work out best for you. I'm not sure what your question is or how to answer it. I think I get your question. I just don't know how to answer it. So, from my perspective, the eclipse is only going to empower me. So it's you're kind of lucky that you're going to get to talk to me after the eclipse, because it means you're going to talk to me after I've been empowered. So there you go. What is my view on fasting? I think fasting can be very helpful for a lot of people. I don't fast all that often. In fact, I'm starving right now because I need a lot of protein. So for some people, fasting is great, and I think you should follow what your body does and what your instincts want. I personally don't fast because when I fast, I can't think and I can't function. But that's also because I'm living my life in such a way. I lift a lot of weights and I want to be muscular and strong, and so it's in my best interest to eat a lot of protein. Okay, so 10th house is games. No, 10th house is your fame. It's technically your career, but what it really means is how the world sees you, how you're going to be known, which usually means career. It's your fame. So it's gonna help you. Okay, so again, people are asking me specific rituals. I've already talked about that. I'm not going to go deep into different kinds of rituals, but just focus on yourself. Listen to the essence of what I'm saying and meditate on that. All right, so we're done with all the questions. So I think I got through everything I wanted to say. I'll do some ads again and let's see what I want to say. See if there's any last minute anything. Okay, so yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today. I've been on for 2.25 hours. So those of you who are coming on late, don't worry, this is a live Q&A, but it will be archived, which means that it'll be recorded, and it'll take a little time to be recorded, but it will show up on my channel probably within 24 hours, so you can go back and watch it from the beginning. Those of you who want an astrological reading from me, astrology.thunderwizard.com. Those who want to go deep into, really learn some deep shamanic stuff, go to thunderwizard.com. So here's what I want to end with. I want to end with us together to do an intention during the eclipse. I'm just going to look at the last minute questions. Okay. Okay, all right, so, yeah, so here's what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. And so during the eclipse, if you have a spare moment, what I'd like for you to do is to intend for me and for us, if you feel a connection to my work and to me. Intend for us that this YouTube channel explodes. Just goes completely nuts viral. And that the Patreon channel at the first level of apprenticeship, where people get access to the free, to the private videos, that blows up. And I guess more importantly than that, that benefits me personally, obviously. But more important than that, I think some of you have an understanding, perhaps better than I do, what the ancestors are doing with this knowledge. And I want to be really, clear. I want to. This isn't just me doing this. You guys are part of this. There are people that I'm working with. When I work, I can't think of one apprentice that I work with who doesn't expand my knowledge. And what's really exciting for me, and this has always been my feeling about this knowledge that's come to me, is that I'm not the guru. I'm not the the prophet. I don't own this stuff. I am giving you blueprints of tools. And then what I'm seeing is that you're taking these tools and you are then expanding on them. And I believe that this path I'm calling the path of the Thunder Wizard, the Thunder Path, I believe that this is laying foundations for an evolutionary shift in spiritual work. Yeah, I'm sharing Vedic stuff, I'm sharing Taoist stuff, I'm sharing stuff from my, really, and focusing it through the lens of my ancestral pre-Christian spirituality. But I am also confident that there are things that I am teaching that are going beyond what my ancestors knew. That they had these tools and they hadn't made a lot of the connections, because that's how these spiritual paths work. As time goes on, they evolve, and the roots of their ultimate evolution are there, and then they come out. And I think that's what's happening. And my point of that is that I'm seeing that with you guys. There are those of you who I'm working with who take this stuff, and you come back and you say, I read this book and I read that, and I came up with this graph, or I have this idea. This is, one student in particular gave me an understanding of what the dark elves were. I didn't know what they were. That's because he's a dark elf in training. I worked with somebody just recently that came up and showed me deeper understandings of the rune wheel and the thunder wheel that I hadn't thought of before. And some of the questions I'm getting here are blowing my mind. Like, I can tell that that's coming from a really deep place, but I don't know the answer to that question yet. So my point is that I want you to help me intend for this teaching to go viral. And for that it really becomes a community where, I have my niche, you have your niche, you have your understanding, you take something that I'm teaching, and I'm giving you a nugget, and then you go and work with it, and you come back and you show me what it really means. And then you become the master of that one piece. Right? I'm just the architect. I've just drawn the blueprint. But you guys get to go in and build the house. And it has always been my feeling that this knowledge that's coming through me, it is going to be for future generations. That, whatever fame I get from this is going to be after I'm gone. You know, when I'm not here anymore, that's when people are going to really start, that this teaching will take root and take hold and have a real value. Now that's always been my feeling, but then everybody thinks that about their own stuff. You know, I'm going to be the greatest musician in the world or the greatest actor or whatever it is. But I'm not the only one that's felt that. You guys have told me that you feel that as well. That, you know, it's been the feedback from you that's given me the real understanding that there's something more to this. And I'm just as much, you know, an observer to all this as everybody else. And so anyway, take from what I'm saying and kind of put that in. Again, the way I'm seeing it is that as the eclipse comes over, it's like all of these lenses come together and it creates this wormhole into a new dimension. And that new dimension, if we choose to walk through it, is whatever we're willing to, you know, as much as we're willing to believe. I'll stop with this. You know, when it comes to finding your perfect mate, there is a technique that I teach people to use, which is before you go to bed every night you say, bring to me my perfect, you know, if it's a woman you say Shiva, or if you want a male partner you say Shiva, and if you're a man you say Shakti, or, you know, whatever. Bring to me my perfect Shakti in whatever form that is. And you say that every single night before you go to bed for however long it takes. Because what you're doing is you're training your unconscious mind. Now you could use this for anything. It doesn't have to be just for a life partner. It could be about career. It could be about finances. It could be about enlightenment. It could be about anything. When you say, bring to me my perfect, you're telling your unconscious mind you're not willing to accept something that's going to be less than what is your deepest soul desire. That's what I mean when I use the word perfect. And then you say, in whatever form that is, then you're saying, in the meantime, while that is being prepared for me, bring to me through the universe all of the benefits of that so that I get to feel as though I already have that within me. Because, by the way, if you want your perfect husband or wife, you won't be able to manifest them as long as you are not in alignment with yourself. When you are taking actions against your highest and deepest alignment, the universe says, I have this perfect thing over here, but if I give it to you, you won't even realize it. You'll throw feces at it. You won't even know it's there. Because you won't be in that spot. But we are all destined for that. There's no like, you know, this life is going to be crap, but the next one will be better. This one could be it. You have to live your life as though this is going to be the one where I achieve ultimate enlightenment, ascension. This is the one. And so you live every moment as though you are aligned, and then you are constantly wishing every moment to take the steps, have the beliefs. That's why I keep telling people, drop all the fear-based beliefs. Drop it. I know it's fun. I know it's fun to live in the. Listen, there's a lot of fun in the reptilian brainstem. I know that. Listen, I like the idea of going out and cracking heads. Living in that. That's one of my things. I've never done that, but yeah, the thought of that, sure, that's a lot of fun. But it's not going to get me what I want. So drop it. Holding on to that stuff keeps you out of your deepest alignment, and then you get to stay in the matrix. So, anyway, I'm babbling on and on, but you get where I'm going with this. Anyway, I've talked myself out of what it was I was saying and just babbling now. So let's see. I don't know if there's anything left to say. Again, if there's any questions, I'm not seeing a question. Yeah, again, I'm not seeing a question. So questions is what I respond to. All right, so that's it for me today. So that's my parting statement, is that let us together, if you so desire, intend together to create whatever the heck this thing wants to be, the highest emanation of whatever it is that the ancestors want to create through us, through this path. So Having said that, my friends, I thank you so much for the opportunity of being here with you tonight. I'm going to literally, I'm not going to do any work tomorrow, so I will see you on the other side. I'm going to take a ride on that. I'm going to climb inside that vortex spaceship tomorrow, and I will report back to you from whatever dimension I land on. All right, so until next time, I wish you all the best. May you all vibrate from your highest and deepest awareness, and may you have your highest and most successful and most amazing life. This guy you're looking at now won't be here. Somebody else, the new me, will be here next time we talk to each other. So that's it for now. I'll talk to you soon.